And I said to her, how does it feel having left your home and here you are in a strange place and there's a war going on? And she said to me, no, you don't understand. This is my home. And I thought, that says a lot.
Hi everyone. In previous episodes, we've talked about some of our journey since October 7th, the terrorist attacks in Israel in 2003. We've done an episode talking about what we did in Israel in terms of the solidarity part of our trip, because we call them solidarity and serve. So going to visit locations of the massacres, of the attacks, where people were taken hostage, hearing from survivors, from experts. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what we did to then serve on those trips. Now, on those trips, we had a thread that went through it while we were serving, and also the solidarity part, where for people there, we went to them and said, you know, we're from England, Canada, America, Australia, wherever people came from. We came all the way just to let you know that you are not alone. And this was the thread that went through the whole trip, to encourage and support, to let them know that they aren't alone, that there are people out there that stand with them and support them. And so we'll start off just by Daphne sharing a few of the stories of those encounters and some of the things that come out of it. People often think, you know, I have to go and say lots of things to people. Mm-hmm. And you don't. In this situation, just go and saying that one thing and then stopping and then letting it breathe and then hearing the responses leads to unbelievable conversations and ongoing friendships. Many of them we're still in contact with today. So do you want to just start sharing some of those stories of when we went to those people and said that to them?
Yeah. So I was walking down the street in Jerusalem and I saw a mother and a child who was probably about 4 years old. So I smiled at her and she smiled back. So I went to her and I said, I've come all the way from England just to tell you, you're not alone. And she said, oh, wow. She said, my little girl has just asked me why everybody hates her. And I said, pick your little girl up. So she did. And I looked the little girl in the eyes and said, I've come on an aeroplane a long way just to tell you how special you are and how much you're loved. And I then said to the mother, can I give you a hug? And she said yes. And I put my arms around her and around the little girl, and we just hugged in the streets of Jerusalem for what seemed a very long time. Can't do that from England. Can't do that by email. And then we were in a coffee shop, and I saw a father in IDF uniform, and he had a little girl who was probably about 2 years old, and he was really focused on this little girl. And sometimes when you've got a child who's that young, you can get distracted, you can get bored, you're looking around. He was focused on that little girl the whole time. So I went up to him, and you know what I'm going to say. I have come all the way from England just to tell you you're not alone. And he looked at me and he said, do you know why I fight? I said, tell me. And he said, it's for her, pointing at the little girl. He says, so she can have a homeland. Another encounter. And then I was at breakfast and I was just watching people go by, and a lady came and she sat with me because I invited her to have breakfast with me. We were both by ourselves, so come and have breakfast with me. And we were talking, and as we were talking, I took off my ring and I said to her, I want you to have this ring. And she said, oh, I can't take your ring. I said, you can, and I'm going to tell you why. Because every time you look at this ring, I want you to know this. Where you go, I go. Your people are my people, and your God is my God. And she took that ring, and we're still in touch, still today. And she says, people ask her the story of the ring. And she says, I'm so proud to tell them. And then I was sitting in Jerusalem, waiting for you to arrive. And it was a long seat, and half of it was empty. And I was just sitting watching the traffic.
There's a bench on the side of the road.
Yeah, on the side of the road. And this lady came and sat next to me. She was quite elderly, so I turned to her, and you all know what I was going to say. I've come all the way from England just to tell you you're not alone. And she said to me, I was in the Holocaust. And she said, I have no more tears to cry. So I said to her, I'll cry your tears for you. And she burst into tears, and I hugged her. As the traffic went by in Jerusalem, we hugged, and she sobbed, and she sobbed. So there's a few stories, and we have many, many more that we could tell, where we saw people, we connected with them, said you're not alone, and we waited. Oh, there's one more. We were walking along, and there was a young couple. There are many more, but one more.
I was going to say just one more.
Yeah, no, one more to tell. I'll tell now. There was a young couple walking along, and they had small children in buggies, and they smiled. So I went to them and said, I've come to tell you you're not alone.
Buggies or prams for people in England,
whatever,
or whatever people call
I've come to tell you you're not alone. And he said, thank you, because he said the people who come these days just come to attack us. And so you can see from those stories how easily it is to connect with them, how desperate they are for connection, and how desperate they are to know that there's people who will come from around the world. One of them wrote to me afterwards, and he said, when people will come from around the world and pay their money to be with us, that means a lot. Do you want to, before we finish, tell the story of a breakfast with the man and the Holocaust pictures that he showed you?
Yeah, I mean, you did a similar thing. Went and you saw a father and a son, and I just sat down, had just started eating, and there's Mum. Off she goes to say this line to them, and father and a son. She went over and you kind of eyeballed the son, and you said it to him. Anyway, we got into a conversation, and they both left, and then the father came running back, and I think he'd gone up to his room and got some documents, and he came over and said to me, can I show you something? So I said, yeah, absolutely. And they'd gone to Yad Vashem, which is a Holocaust memorial place in Israel, and there's a picture there with his family, but there's nothing that explains what happened to his family. And so he'd gone away and he'd got all this research, documentation of what had happened to each of those people in that picture. And I think it was only his father or mother, one of them, that survived the Holocaust. So he's showing me all of this, and he went on to say, you know, what's happening now since October 7th takes our memories back to what happened then during the Holocaust. And so it brings back old memories and makes them very fresh, and helps them realize, you know, actually, maybe we're not too far away from a Holocaust being able to happen again. And so, yeah, we just got to engage and talk a bit off the back of that.
Yeah, I just want to sort of cut in here, really. I think some of the people whose stories we've just told may be listening to this, and I want to say to each one of them, thank you for letting us be part of your story, and thank you for letting us share it so that others can be impacted by your lives and understand a bit of what you're going through. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, so we thought we'd just start with a few of those stories, and again, these were a thread through the whole trip. But let's talk about some of the opportunities we had to go and actually serve there. Now, one of the places that we went to, they bring children in with heart conditions from the surrounding nations, including Gaza, many nations that hate Israel. Some of the people they brought in do not like Israel. And they go into those countries, they get these children, bring them to Israel, and they coordinate with a hospital to provide life-saving heart surgery for these children. Now, some of them sadly don't make it. That's how serious their conditions are. But many do. And then they recover, and this organization takes them back to their countries again. So we got to go and serve in some of their facilities, spend time with these kids, with their families, the parent, whichever parent it was that was there with them. We got to go help them clean out facilities, supply other facilities. We got to take the children out to the beach and enjoy a day out in the middle of the stress of not just their physical conditions that they're having to deal with, but also having to deal with those conditions in the middle of a war as well.
And we cleared up the garden, made it a good
Cleaned the
play
garden
area.
out. Yeah, we put our green thumbs to the plough, so
Well,
to
I
speak.
didn't.
Well, yeah, some of us did. And we actually had been to that place a couple of times, because we've been 3 times, obviously, since October 7th.
And we kind of lost some of our team there eventually.
We should clarify what that means.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to.
But yeah, so of the teams that we'd taken, I think 4 or 5 of those people
Something like that.
have now gone back to serve long term, and mostly in those facilities, which is phenomenal. And yeah, like I said, those kids are from the surrounding nations. These are not Israeli kids, and many often are from countries that don't like Israel. And these are things that you won't hear in the media so much about what Israel does to help those people in surrounding nations when they are in need. Normally, if you hear something about Israel and the surrounding nations, the media will try and paint it in a negative light. But they are doing things to help. And actually, that also goes for terrorists, people that have killed Israelis and Jewish people. And if they have survived, they provide medical care for terrorists as well. But that's a whole other thing.
And then we went to a place where people come when they're making Aliyah, don't we? Because since October the 7th, there's over 20,000 have returned to Israel as prophesied. And so I should imagine that crisis of caring for them will increase as time goes by.
Yeah, and there's actually 2 places we went, which was helping people that had made Aliyah. Mm-hmm. So one was this place, and again, we managed to help stock their warehouse of equipment for clothes, for food, things like that, which was given out to these people that are making Aliyah. They also help with, for example, you could have a Jewish person who makes Aliyah, returns to Israel, but in whatever country they were from, they were brain surgeons, for example. And then they move to Israel, but they can't speak Hebrew. And so they can't be brain surgeons. And so they end up having to work in shops or something like that. So that's quite a big change in lifestyle. So the facility, this center helps them with that as well, gets them up to speed with the language and hopefully back into the profession that they were in before. Another place we went to was on the border of Gaza. And we managed to help feed, I think, about 1,000 families of Ukrainian and Russian Jews.
This sounds you're saying it quite quickly, but it was a big deal. And I want to say, This is why we need teams to come, isn't it? If we could go out there ourselves, but we couldn't have done all that at the Aliyah place, and we couldn't have been feeding 1,000 people.
Yeah,
so.
we need a team with us.
Yeah.
As strong as my mum is, we need a little bit of support. And we're taking teams next year, so if you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the description box. Go have a look. We would love to have people come and help serve with us.
We need people
to come and help.
With us.
Not we don't. Israel, the Jewish people need people to go and help.
I can't carry big refrigerators up and down 3 stories.
Yeah, by serving and helping them, they also help us as well. So
I need you as well to come.
Okay. I don't even know what I was saying. Oh, yeah. So Russian and Ukrainian Jews. Now, a lot of these had fled Russia and Ukraine because of the war there. And so they said, you know what, we're going to leave. We're going to make Aliyah. Let's move to Israel. They get there. October 7th happens. And now they're in the middle of another war. But this time they have nothing. They left it all in Ukraine, all in Russia. They're in Israel. They have nothing. And so we managed to go and help, again, provide equipment, provide them with food, and managed to then give these out to people face to face and be an encouragement to them as well.
I actually thought about that when I was talking to one of them who spoke English. And I said to her, how does it feel having left your home and here you are in a strange place and there's a war going on. And she said to me, no, you don't understand. This is my home. And I thought, that says a lot about the Jewish people and Israel. Ukraine, even in peacetime, wasn't a home. To be in Israel during this horrific time was home to her.
Yeah, and before we went to Israel, in the planning, we had to figure out where we were going to stay. And there are a lot of displaced people from the south of Israel, but also from the north of Israel. We have the war with Hamas in Gaza, and you have the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And actually, it's now a war, but before, basically, it was just Hezbollah firing rockets and Israel trying to focus on the south before they then started to focus in the north. But you had these people displaced from both sides. And so we were trying to look at where do we stay. And there's a hotel that we normally stay in Jerusalem. And they said, if you come and stay here, you should know that there are a lot of displaced people here. The hotel is not operating like a hotel right now. And they said you could go and stay in a different hotel where there aren't displaced people. And we said, well, what's the point in that? Like, we're coming to serve, we're coming to connect with the people, but we don't want to stay in a hotel with them. We said, no, we'll stay in that same hotel with the people. And I think we may have touched on this in the last episode, actually.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, but it was strange because all of them were from one community. And so it was like us just going and staying in their community from the north and getting to be a part of their lives and connecting with them. And again, encouraging them and talking to people, some of which, like the lady with the ring, she was one of those displaced people.
No, she wasn't. Actually, I have to say that because she's probably listening. She came to help.
Oh, she came to help from the US.
From the US,
yeah, that's
from
right.
New York.
That's right. Yep, you're right.
Forgot that. But one of my memories in that hotel was of going around the corner on my way down, because I walk up and down the stairs, and Daniela was lying on the floor with a bunch of children, and she was just bought games and she was playing with the children who were just running around the corridors. So there's a life to be had, even if we went and just stayed in the hotel. And even the staff there, of course, they're traumatized too. And I remember when we were going, I think he's the person who oversees the whole of the dining area. And we said to him, come here, we want to sing to you. And the whole team sang a song that had been written by the worship leader who comes with us, saying, when you're walking through the valley, we'll walk with you. When we're going through the fire, we'll be with you. We'll see you home. And we sang it over him, and he looked as if he was just holding himself together. So there's so many precious moments along the way. It's not just doing a task, which needs doing. It would be worth going for that. But there's so many opportunities that are life-changing for us as well as for them.
Yeah. And then we touched on this in a previous episode, but on part of our trip, we went up into the north. And I think I talked about our journey there with the rockets and all that kind of stuff. So you can go hear that in the previous episode. But while we were there, we were spending time to encourage those that had still stayed in the north. Many had been displaced, many had moved out, but there were some who stayed. Or they were in communities that were obviously within rocket range, but decided they were going to stay there. They weren't under mandated evacuations. So we would hold this gathering, and they could come to this gathering, and we got to speak to them and share some of our story and share a word of encouragement for all the people there. And I remember you were talking and you said to them, I just want to say sorry. I'm sorry that much of the church has deserted you. Many Christians around the world are not supporting and are not speaking up for you.
And they're not here.
And they're not here. They haven't come to Israel. I think we'd said in before about how there was one person's talked to us and said, Christians want to come from all around the world and tour Israel, seeing biblical sites in our air-conditioned buses, but where are they when we need them? And so we're talking to this group and said sorry to them. we said, you may have noticed there aren't many Christians here, and we want to apologize that they haven't shown up to be here as a support and encouragement to you. And there was a wave that went across that room of people saying, yes, like, we feel abandoned. Where are the church? Where are our friends in our hour of need? And so we got to just sort of talk about that, spend a time encouraging them, letting them know some of our journey, and hugs, tears were shared. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Oh, well, were you winding up?
Well, I was just talking about that situation.
Okay,
You
well,
can say something
I'll
about
say my wind up. Yeah. I just want to say that we've shared about how I hope we have been able to touch the lives of Jewish people there, but I cannot overstate the effect that it had on us. We've been out there now, as we probably told you, about 14 or 15 years, and this was different. There is nothing that can compare to going out there. So you can't go and touch the suffering of the Jewish people and not touch the heart of God and the suffering he feels in this. Neither can you replace going there and putting your arms around them and hugging them and weeping with them and being there with them. I think that is as near maybe to get to sharing in the fellowship of his suffering, because it surely is his suffering. So I just want to say that before you wind up.
Yeah, so people interested in this, like I said, we'll put a website in the description box. You can go have a look at the information, contact us, let us know if it's something you'd like to be a part of. You know, this isn't just going and helping Jewish people, helping Israelis. Like I said, we work at facilities with kids from surrounding nations. In fact, that place that I talked about with kids from heart conditions has, when we went there, it had 5 kids from Gaza as well, and some of their family. And so they brought kids in from Gaza with heart conditions to help them and give them life-saving surgeries. And so actually going there, helping to serve in Israel, you also have the opportunity to help serve people from surrounding nations as well, including Gaza. And so, you know, often people say, well, you know, I want to help the other nations. I want to help people from Gaza. And going to Israel, I can't do that. Well, number one, you should want to help innocent people in Israel as well, people that have been affected by this. But you do have the opportunity. You know, people make all kinds of accusations about Israel being an apartheid state and all this kind of stuff. But there's a melting pot of different cultures and people from all over the world that come and move there and live there. You have Arabs that live there. And so in this trip and during these things that we do, you do get an opportunity to help all kinds of people. You wanted to say something?
No.
So again, please, we would love to have other people come join us on these trips. Let's not just be people that say things on social media, that give support that way. Let's not just be people either of silence. Let's speak up. Let's be vocal in support and encouragement. But let's not just be people that speak. Let's not just be people that pray. Let's be people of action. Let's put action to the prayers and our voices as well. And you can do that by supporting Jewish communities where you are, reaching out to them and saying what we have talked about on this episode. But it's vitally important that you also help by going. And if you are able to either go yourselves or help other people to go, maybe sponsor someone, maybe you have an organization or a church and you say, actually, I want to help someone go as a representative for us. These are all opportunities and options that you can take up. So please go check out that information, get in contact with us. We'd love to have you join us in Israel next year. And we've got multiple opportunities to do that. So thank you, everyone. This has been our journey over 3 episodes, from hearing about October 7th and seeing what's going on through to going there, standing in solidarity, seeing the locations and serving. And now we continue doing that, and we continue with the work helping to support Jewish communities around the world as they live in fear of being attacked in streets where they are. Many of you will have heard a few weeks ago about the attacks in Amsterdam after a football match there, and people getting lynched in the streets. So let's continue to be vocal and put action to that as we stand with Israel and the Jewish people during these difficult times. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, if it inspired you, share it with others so we can see more people engaged in this community.